welcome to the Cycling Demystified podcast. This week I've got a really insightful interview with cycling coach Deena Blacking, where we follow the rabbit hole deep down and around many topics, including the true role of a coach, how to find the right coaching philosophy for you, and why AI programs will never replace an experienced human coach. Having cut her teeth as a human rights lawyer and been at UK Sport on the National Talent Pathway Strategy for GB Olympic and Paralympic sports, Deena has a clear ethical stance when it comes to coaching. She's now been coaching a mix of aspiring pro and amateur athletes for over a decade, as well as finding time to support athlete development programs such as the Cyclists Alliance, Lunsar Cycling Team and UK Coaching. So listen in for the coaching tips to improve your riding and what you should be expecting from a human coach. Welcome to the podcast, Deena Blacking. Always good to see your face. Always good to have you on board.
Thanks, Mike.
Last time I saw you was probably about a year ago, in the flesh, actually, at our open day.
Yeah.
Which is almost exactly a year ago. So how time flies, eh? But yeah, always great to kind of have your voice around and your words of wisdom. So yeah, I really wanted to get you on board today just to talk to our dear listeners about coaching, your approach to coaching, some nuggets of wisdom that you can give them. Mm-hmm. Obviously, as a female coach, I'm sure we'll get onto the ins and outs of and particulars of coaching females and any words around that. So we recently had your insights on our International Women's Day kind of podcast, where we talked about women's specificity and whether or not I was needed or not. But we can kind of delve into a little bit more about that. But really kind of wanted to get your voice really on the philosophy around coaching. And I think a lot of people kind of think about coaches as people who prescribe training plans and, you know, require certain FTP numbers and put these markers into place. But I think there's a little bit more nuance and particular around coaching. It's certainly a skill and an art in itself, just like bike fitting, I think. So, and I've always enjoyed how you've approached it. So, yeah, I think that kind of frames where we're going to go today. But we'll see where the rabbit hole takes us. Yeah, welcome. And well, let's just start off by getting you to tell the listeners about yourself. How did you get into this? What you've done in the past?
Right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go for it.
It's actually funny just listening to you. I was thinking about how many great coaches I had in the context where we met, which was London Fields Triathlon Club. So that was this really interesting period in my life where a friend encouraged me to get involved in triathlon. I did. The club was great, but it didn't have a lot going on with cycling. So I, at the same time, joined Islington Cycling Club. And both of these environments were just so welcoming, both like other participants and some of the coaches, that I just kind of dived in. And within less than a year, I had decided I wanted to do coaching. I couldn't say I had thought about it my whole life. I could say I had always done things where I helped people in a kind of sort of tutoring type way. So I always tutored other kids in school. I helped tutor at my university. I did after school clubs. So that kind of vibe of helping other people with learning of some form wasn't like a totally foreign concept to me. But I definitely wasn't like, you know, a 12-year-old riding a road bike. I did not know what road cycling was. I didn't know who Chris Froome was or any of that. But yeah, for some reason, I just got hooked and I just kind of snowballed into it. And I was fortunate to be based in London, beside like living in Hackney near the Olympic Velodrome, and I guess also at the same time as coaching racing. So just kind of, and then also, actually like doing marshalling at races. So really kind of getting involved in cycling from every possible angle and just for the most part finding the community a fun and interesting one to be in. And I guess the thing is, like, when you're a woman in cycling coaching, you are a minority. So that also gives you opportunities because, you know, like many organizations, cycling wants to have more women or, different people involved. So if they see you and they think you're good, they'll be quick to say, oh, well, would you like to come along and help us with this? It would be great to have a woman along. And I don't know, like 10 years later, I'm working for the International Union for Female Professional Cyclists, and I work also with a cycling team in Sierra Leone, and I also do a lot of work with other sports as well, and coaches in other sports, and
junior coaching as well, don't you?
So I did
coach
a
a junior
lot
team.
of that. Not anymore, or not right now, but I did. So the thing I love the most about working with younger athletes is they have an optimism and a fire and an enthusiasm and a willingness to learn that's just quite hard to beat. So they'll say things like, I want to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And that's a goal. And whether or not that's a realistic goal is sometimes another question. But I just think, it's very inspiring to be around those attitudes and those people who are able to take feedback and run with it and make use of it and improve themselves in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting to kind of hear. I guess, we think about grassroots coaching and getting the younger generations into the sport, but I haven't really thought about the kind of the aspirational stuff that's already there. They have that kind of want and desire, and they're kind of maybe less tainted by the struggles of everyday life and things like that. And so you can really kind of build on that desire and fire and really kind of bottle that and put that into a great pathway, things like that. So yeah, that's amazing. And I think you said the C word earlier, which was community. Going back to right at the beginning when you were kind of introducing kind of how you got into coaching. And I think that was the lovely thing about London Fields Triathlon Club, where the coaches came from the athletes who were participating, and it was a way to give back to the club, to kind of nurture some of the newer athletes coming in, to pass down your knowledge that you had been what you'd learned, and just get involved from none of us were paid, or it was purely giving our time and knowledge to further the club, and built a really lovely community and fostered a really nice environment, I think, around all the athletes. And seems like you've kind of put yourself into all those kind of or found different communities along the way to kind of really share your knowledge and foster that kind of desire to kind of build and give back, things like that. So.
Absolutely. I think one of the great things about London Fields was it was about performance, but it was inclusive, so you could turn up and be slow. I mean, I was so slow that I had my own swim lane. It was like the high volume lane, the low volume lane, and then there was me. But the vibe that I got from the coaches and everyone else was just so positive that it didn't put me off, and I wasn't, I wasn't so full of shame that I thought, oh, I'm never going to turn up again. And eventually I got quick enough that I could, go in the low volume lane respectively. And it was just great, because I think sometimes these days I do a lot of work with diversity and inclusion. And I think sometimes people think that like it's either inclusive, but there's no measures of success, or it's high performance and you can't be inclusive if it's high performance because that's just unrealistic. And I think that's a cop out on both sides. I think you can do both. I think it's just about being a bit more thoughtful with how things are done.
Yeah, things are never kind of black and white, aren't they? There's always kind of levels and degrees to it, and so it's kind of looking back and seeing how sensitive you are to that particular situation, and you talking to the people in that community in the right kind of, well, not right kind of way, but in a way that they relate and is relevant to them, I guess. But yeah, you seem to have ended up in lots of different, I guess, charitable kind of communities. You worked for UK Sport quite a while, so that's a pretty big organisation trying to get just everyone into sport, really. And now the Women's Alliance in cycling. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about how you got involved with that, and
Sure.
where's that going at the moment?
So the Cyclists Alliance, I had emailed them. So before I worked in sports, I worked as a human rights lawyer. I've always,
All right.
I've always been interested in fairness and justice. What I've learned as I get older is often life is not fair, sadly. But it's good to therefore have people who try and, fight to like reduce that unfairness. And so the thing that catapulted me into actually initially volunteering with the Cyclists Alliance was the collapse of the team Paula K, which used to be another team. Cycling team names change quicker than fashion. So that team collapsed, and just the way in which it collapsed because the sponsor withdrew, to me just looked like, dealing with people's livelihoods in a really slapdash manner. And of course, I didn't know the details, and maybe, as often with these things, there's like a bigger story behind the news story, but it struck me as fundamentally unjust. And so I got in touch with Iris, who founded TCA, and I just said, hey, Iris, I've got some skills. I really care. Let me help. And she said, oh, well, actually, maybe this could be useful. And she put me in touch with Marnix, who was the head of legal at that time. And I started helping. And initially, it was around the time Brexit was about to remove the rights of British athletes to remain in Europe. And so I got involved specifically with that remit of upskilling TCA on how do we advise and support athletes who are from Britain and no longer can just reside in Europe. So that was quite interesting. I learned a lot about Brexit, and I also got in touch with a lot of different cycling agents and lawyers all around Europe, and so did that. And then kind of basically my role just expanded. I would say I'm quite a good jack of all trades and can put my hand to most things. So I kind of gathered up more projects, and now I guess 4 years later, I am the programs manager. So I look after athlete health and education, like basically most of the athlete facing educational support things. So we have a great legal team, and they deal more specifically with like legal issues, ethical issues. But I would look after athlete health about anything from concussion to mental well-being, and then athlete personal and professional development. So we have historically run mentor programs. So I'm in the process of revamping that, and we're going to be launching different versions for different stages of an athlete's career pathway. So that's a super inspiring, fun aspect of work, and I feel very lucky that I get to do that for work. So we have about 6 people who are paid, and that is thanks to we earn revenue obviously from membership fees, although not a lot. We get most of ours from sponsorship from amazing brands like Zwift and Strava and Pawn, and like in the last few years we've also had a number of other big brand names like Specialized and Trek and Cannondale and Live and SRAM all support TCA. So we occupy a very luxurious space in the cycling industry, in that we're doing good things for women in cycling, and I guess the tide generally wants to see that happen. So we're, as long as we do a good job of things, which I like to think we do, I think we'll continue to be able to have positive relationships with a lot of the big brands involved in the sport.
Yeah, that's really amazing, and really good to hear that the support is there, and people are willing to kind of support. And just to let the listeners know, that the TCA is an organisation. Well, maybe you can summarise better, like kind of just a really quick, brief overview of the TCA.
Sure. It's a union. So the idea is it's a union for women who work in cycling, or you think it's like an athlete representation body. So we try and get professional female cyclists of all disciplines, albeit we mainly have road cyclists, to join, and then they get access to services that help them with their career. And then we also try and advocate for them with the UCI and other major stakeholders. So, for example, TCA helped get the minimum wage for World Tour riders and get better conditions around maternity pay and things like that.
Yeah, amazing stuff. That's so good to hear. And yeah, great that the UCI are kind of responding.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. But no, to be fair, when they do, I think they they definitely struggle because they've just had their head of innovation in esport leave. And I think they, I don't know, it seems like sometimes they've got a lot of tasks and not very many people to do them. But yeah.
I mean, there's so much going on, and there's so much to cover in all the different sports, and it's a bit of a juggernaut. And I don't want to go into the politics of it, but
let's not.
but it's great to see that you're getting results, which is amazing.
Thank you.
And I've been even down to, and it seems to be kind of such a holistic approach, which is great. Just right down from the everyday of the everyday health of an athlete, and even as you were saying, what happens if they crash and they get a concussion and they got to get checked out. There's ongoing support and knowledge around that over to kind of longer term kind of mental health and supporting athletes I guess through their careers, beyond their careers, looking forward beyond that, because an athlete's lifespan is only so far.
Absolutely.
And even the webinar series that you've been doing just for other women as well, which have been I believe really well taken. So
thank you.
Yeah.
What I would say is that one of the biggest tasks I sometimes have, especially with younger athletes, is helping them to see that their health is part of their, like if they're an asset or a product, like a football player is more visibly an asset or a product. Their health is a key component of that. So it's very difficult for people to be an athlete because it's 24/7, it's kind of unrelenting, like everything they do, every micro decision they make, what to eat, what to drink, when to go to sleep, when to wake up, what bed to sleep in, all those things can affect them. Granted, it's not quite the same when you're just an amateur, but actually, I firmly believe your health is your wealth. And I also hope that, even when you talk about things, like even just by talking about this now, maybe someone listening thinks, oh yeah, maybe I should look after my health a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I had another coach put it really nicely, and they said that like health is a prerequisite to high performance. So
oh sure,
I guess there's always a fine balance to be made, and high performance often demands you walk that fine line between healthy and unhealthy. But if you push it too far and don't look after that health, there's no way that you can perform at the highest level that you possibly can do. But whether that's short term or long term, so that health has to be come first and foremost, or certainly the conversation has to be around, like, well, you're doing this, what's the cost of it? And as a young athlete, it's very easy to be singularly focused on one thing. I don't know if you I saw that amongst your kind of like junior teams, or the desire and the passion to go to the Olympics is there, but there needs to be the practical kind of stepping stones to kind of move towards that in a healthy kind of way.
So I'm going to say something that's a bit left field, but it'll hopefully make you laugh. So one of the things that we often try and do with athletes, so this is me personally as a coach, me talking to other coaches, but especially with younger athletes, but also with professional athletes, is trying to help them cultivate an identity or a habit or a thing that isn't their sport, because that's also part of being healthy and like having a holistic approach. And a way I have seen this recently. So I'm single, and so I sometimes use dating apps, which are horrific.
On the podcast.
And usually Oh God, they're awful. But sometimes I'll kind of, when you're in Girona and you're swiping through dating apps, you'll sometimes see professional cyclists, and they really demonstrate that they haven't cultivated anything else, because they'll list their interests as cycling, keeping fit, coffee, and nutrition, and that's it. And I accept that being an athlete demands a lot, but actually often the most sustainable athletes, and this actually applies for amateurs too, the most sustainable athletes are people who have more than their sport going on for them, because otherwise everything that they deem a success in their life is on this knife edge of whether they're performing. And if they're not performing, then they're nothing. And it's and even actually I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, so someone I coach went and did Grand Guanche, and they're an amateur, and I said, okay, well, yes, okay, you've worked hard for this, but you're not paid to do this, so please, in amongst all the suffering, enjoy it and take photos. And he messaged me afterwards to, amongst other things, to thank me for reminding him to take photos, which which I was glad to read, because there's always more to life than just one pursuit of one thing.
Absolutely, that's a wonderful way of kind of reminding us that there is more to life than just cycling or just triathlon or just whatever you pour your heart and soul into, and particularly from the amateur standpoint. And we have this conversation all the time in the studio. What is the cost of what you're doing? Is that really where you want to be? You can see a particular goal and aspiration, but is that really what you want? And especially, amateur athletes have it even harder in many ways, because you're juggling jobs, families, babies, looking after other parents sometimes, work, and then you're training 10, 20 hours a week, trying to get to this kind of goal. And often the sport in itself becomes this release mechanism for a lot of other stresses. And so it does become really difficult when sport that has been this kind of leveler, and a thing that becomes really important to people's lives, then you have to kind of dial it back a little bit. And it's always tricky finding that balance, and figuring out what really is behind everything. And from the professional point of view, then how do you, when your livelihood depends on results in many ways, then how do you tear yourself away from just constantly looking at the results as the main outcome, and how you value yourself? Though I had a Theo Gegenhardt kind of speaking on, I think it was a cycling podcast, and I was just amazed at how mature he is and switched on as a young athlete, and really kind of maturing into his position within as a sports person and as a high performing sports person, but really thinking ahead already of, what do I want to do beyond cycling? What is my value as a human being beyond just the cycling results and so on? And I hope, it seems like that culture may be kind of growing through the professional ranks and so on. Or I hope it is anyway. But it's really refreshing to hear such a young voice within the peloton speaking so candidly and maturely about ambitions, things like that. So well, that went down there.
We went down a big rabbit hole there.
So you coach amateur athletes as well as kind of professional athletes and teams and things like that.
So I coach a mix. I would say it's like half and half amateur, and then probably more like aspiring pro. And I would say the thing that is most motivating is not necessarily the level of the athlete, but just like how they engage with the process. Because you talk about results and you're getting people in the bike room, and probably they're talking about they want to do this Ironman or that Ironman or this ultra and that ultra. But people are amazing it's amazing how often people don't engage with the process. They they want the result, like they want the cherry on the cake, but they haven't really contemplated how much effort it's going to require to bake the cake and all the ingredients they need. And if they're willing to do all of that, and in order to get that cake, what they can't have. And so when you work with people who are interested in the process and enjoy it, and I guess kind of move through it sufficiently consistently that we're able to help them make progress, that is super rewarding, no matter if they're, I don't know, 15 or 50.
Yeah, I think that that key word again of process.
Yeah.
It takes time to bake a cake. Takes time. It takes the right ingredients, and it takes the right amount of time in the oven. And training is exactly the same. And yeah, we have a conundrum in the Bike Fit studio all the time of, figuring out an athlete, but also laying down that process of, okay, you might have come in here with an idea of the result, but you had no idea of the process. How long is it going to take? And sometimes there's a big disconnect between what they thought would be the process, or how long it would take, and what is the required effort to get to the result. And so yeah, we spend a lot of time talking in our bike fits, just figuring those things out, and getting the goals and mindset right within athletes, or making sure that we align our process with what their mindset is. And sometimes people, they might not be ready for it, and yeah, it's a more difficult conversation, but like sometimes we just have to let people go and say that this is the best we can do today, and you're going to be here, and let them kind of stew on it for a bit and figure it out. And there's no comparison to actually going and doing the process and figuring it out. I mean, we get just as many people who want to do Ironman who know exactly what it takes and are committed to that kind of process, as people who have no clue, and they just entered Ironman on a drunken whim with their mates because someone goaded them into it, and now they're on that journey of figuring it out. So I imagine it's the same thing with coaching, of taking someone on and being like, okay, what's that point when the penny drops and they go, okay, this maybe I've chewed off a bit more than I can take, or I guess it's you must have those kind of conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mean, I've even done it myself, so I
100%, like we all do it.
Yeah, I think it's why the best thing you can always do is start trying a thing rather than continuing to talk about it, because often whether it's like running a certain distance or riding a certain distance, or riding a certain amount of elevation, we can talk and talk and talk and plan and I don't know, buy the latest things to help us with it, but like nothing tells us more quickly than like just trying to do it and going, oh wow, actually this is quite hard, or I don't know if I want to do this all the time, or even or like you said, the realization that you could theoretically do it, but actually that there's too many trade-offs that you don't want to make. So like as a coach, often I don't want to be the keeper of information. I want to try and make it a collaboration. But I guess in kind of the same way that you do in executive coaching or mentoring, you want the person to have that idea themselves. So you want to kind of ask the questions and like guide the thought process so that eventually they go, oh, wait, that sounds like, I'm not sure. Oh, I never thought of it like that before. And you say, yeah, I know. Yeah. And just I think honesty is key. Like one of the things I would say with people when I'm coaching is like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to tell you you're doing great if you're not, because we're just wasting everyone's time. And I think one of the biggest things with endurance sport is it's really bloody boring. And like, I don't think a lot of people really fully appreciate that. Like it is boring. Like a lot of things are boring. 2x20 is not that interesting, but it's quite a good, it's quite a good session. And like, if you don't want to do boring stuff, you probably should do something else, or you should probably accept it's boring. And maybe I'm too much of a stoic, but like, you know, you can't like polish the turd.
Oh, absolutely. You know, but you got to do a certain amount of work, and I mean, that's endurance. Like the definition of endurance is, you know, doing stuff that your body doesn't want to do, like going beyond that. And yeah, you have to know how to kind of get the work done and suffer through it to a certain amount. But yeah, I think again, you touched on a really interesting thing of, again, it's about the process and embracing the process rather than, you know, you do this and this happens, bang, done. Like the same with bike fitting, the same with coaching. I kind of see bike fitting more like coaching. It's more of a coaching practice, and it's a practice. It's you never complete it. You never complete coaching. You never complete a bike fit. It's just ongoing because your body is always changing and the goals are changing and the environment is changing. And so it's finding a way, it's finding a process that you can kind of manage your way through that and embrace that exploration or embrace the pathway. And that becomes the joy of it. You know, a lot of people, I think, who get it almost end up enjoying the training more because it's, you know, you see the effort, you see the change through the training, and then you get to the race and that's like the cherry on top, as it were. But I guess a lot of people may see it the other way around and see, okay, I've just got to get to that race, and then if it doesn't quite live up to expectations, it's like, oh, there's this big kind of deflation, like all the air goes out of the balloon, and yeah, it's but as you said, you know, you just have to go through the process and do it to find out, you know, what's important for you, what's important, you know, in the long run.
One thing that's interesting that I hadn't anticipated before I started working more in professional cycling was you do get really good pros who hate training, and you do get really good pros who hate racing. You know, as in, like, obviously they do both, but you get a lot of guys who'll say, like, I just want to race. Like, I'm not so fussed about training. I love racing. And actually, you know, that becomes like possible once they get into season, because if they have a lot of race days, they are kind of just like mainly racing. But then you get the reverse. And I have to say, I worry in professional cycling, I worry more when an athlete says that they prefer training, because training is easy compared to racing. You know, like training is like infinitely more controlled, safer, at your convenience, all the other things. And so triathlon is super different, obviously, because of the nature of how you perform in a race. But yeah, it's you get all sorts, and sometimes you even get pro athletes who aren't that, like, especially in men's cycling where it's possible to earn a living, even at kind of pro Conti level. You'll find riders who don't love riding, but they're good at it, and they get paid to do it, so they do it. Not like, I don't know, that it's not their dream job. It just works.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting. I guess it makes sense that there's always like a variety of mindsets within the peloton and so on. But, you know, as a sport, cycling, you look up to these professionals as pinnacles of sport, and there's the want to emulate and be there, and the passion. And, you know, it's like, what an amazing thing to do, that you get to ride your bike as a job and so on. But the reality of that being your job, there's, you know, I guess not everyone loves their job.
Yeah, right. And also, you know, I think the thing that made me stop training so seriously was being surrounded by so many professionals and seeing them take it less seriously than I was. And I was like, this is interesting. I'm gonna try and learn from this experience. Don't get me wrong, there are also, you know, there are, of course, many professionals who do everything to every last moment, whether or not that's like a healthy mindset to have. But like, you know, there's every type of person that you can imagine who is a professional athlete.
Yeah, and I guess that's the the wonderful thing about it. Like you look at the peloton, and there's so many athletes all doing the same thing, but they all come at it a completely different kind of approach and so on. And I guess there's, I don't know, don't like speaking in kind of wrongs or rights, but everyone's found their way to a lesser or certain degree. So yeah, I guess that's a lesson for people out there to figure out, who are you, what do you value, and if you're engaging a coach, for sure you need to find that person that shares the same values as you do, which is, I imagine, is really difficult to, I guess, as a coach, I'm sure you're pretty picky about who you work with and who you don't.
I think it differs so much, because some people are just looking for training. They're looking for the plan. Some people are looking for someone to kick their butt, so they do the training. Some people are looking for a friend to talk about their training. I get, and with pros, often as well, people will have had a coach and they'll just stick with the coach because, if it's a coach who's coached them from the age of 15 and now they're 25, that person knows them better than most other people. And unless they're seeing like a real stagnation in their performance, or their team specifically says, hey, like you have to be coached in-house, they often quite like staying with them. But I think, I don't know. I think it's also good for people to change coaches, even if just to get different perspectives. In the same way, I have a problem, I call up more than one friend, I get two different perspectives, I triage that information, and I pick the best, because I think over the years I've had 3 or 4 different people coach me. And even more recently, when I have, sufficient knowledge to coach myself, but just wanting someone else to set the program, wanting someone to talk to about it, wanting to see what other coaches are doing as well, because it's such an art and science,
Sure.
I'm quite confident that human coaching will never be replaced by AI, because humans aren't rational and they don't operate according to an algorithm. And so let's say, even if, I don't know, let's say for bike fitting, someone creates an algorithm. Well, sorry, it's called the reticle system. Oh wait, there is one. But as in, let's look at my anthropomorphic, let's put me on a bike, let's decide I need this, that, and the other. Let's test various areas of strength to decide that I seem to be able to hold this position. But then I'll tell you, I think I have a slight twist in my pelvis, and I have I don't know, stronger core muscles on my right than my left, but you wouldn't see that. But I can feel it. So when we do an in-depth bike fit where we chat about these things, and maybe I can't even articulate this stuff, but I can just go oh, it's kind of uncomfortable, only then are you able to kind of help me find a position that's comfortable. And I sincerely doubt that the fit that you do, in the same way I would say with my coaching, can be replicated by AI, because AI just, it's smart and humans are stupid.
That's brilliant. I'm gonna say that. AI smart, humans are stupid. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's art. Can AI make art? Well, it can make a certain type of art, yeah, but it'll never be able to make the same art that a human makes, because there are flaws in individuality and all the rest of it in there. So yeah, that's a really interesting point. And yeah, I guess it's always really attractive to have the AI, to have the hack, or to have the hack dangled in front of you. Certainly from a coaching perspective, it's do this training plan in 6 weeks and you will get to this point. And that's the difference between just following a plan and then having a coach In fact, you know, I talk to a lot of people about, you know, what they're doing in their riding, and you know, what their coach is doing for them, or are they being coached at all? And a lot of people say, "Oh, I've got this plan," and well, the whole point of the plan is that the plan gets broken. Like as soon as you start implementing the plan, life gets in the way and stuff gets broken, and that's where your coach becomes invaluable in retrofitting the plan, or planning, like replanning the plan, because nothing ever goes exactly to plan. Like the only like certainty is that the plan will not go to plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mentioned this to you a bit before, how I used to, there was a period where I was doing quite a lot of writing for Cycling Weekly and Rouleur. And for Cycling Weekly, I would be writing quite like coaching specific articles, kind of like tips for readers on how to get better. But I'm afraid the poor editor, I think I drove him crazy, because he'd be like, Deena, I need like clear messages that'll hook in the readers. Like, here are the 3 ways you're going to increase your FTP. And I would always say, but no, David, it depends, you see? And he'd say, well, that's not going to sell my magazine. And, you know, he's correct. Like I once dog sat for a man who's editor of a really interesting website called The Conversation, which works with academics to try and translate their "it depends" complexity into 3 salient points. But the problem with so many of the apps and like, you know, coaching AI and like follow this plan is that they are too simplistic and they miss out things. And there's also like a little, like for me, there's like a bit of I have a real moral issue with some of these apps that claim to provide certainty and claim to provide this like foolproof tailored plan to you, because they really aren't, and it's deceptive and it's dishonest. I'm not so critical when apps or programs at least kind of admit their limits, but I think, you know, I had someone message me recently and say like, oh, I was following this thing and now it's telling me that I shouldn't train, but I think I should. What do you think? And I said, well, how do you feel? And I said, well, I'm exhausted. I said, well, okay, so listen to that. You know, like that's more, you know, your rate of perceived effort is the most complex, accurate measurement of so many inputs and outputs at the same time that cannot be replicated by an algorithm that decides to weight your sleep by a power of 10 and your resting heart rate by a power of 5, and then, I don't know, just decide that like your BMI is somehow indicative of something else, and so on and so forth. You know, like it just I don't know.
Do you think that's a kind of lost part of our, I don't know, humanity, our training, that, you know, it's easier to, well, as Matt puts it in the studio, we outsource our responsibility for those feelings and intuition of what our body's doing to the app or to the algorithm, because it's easier. Like, you know, just my Whoop tells me, yeah, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But is it really?
Yeah.
Like, you know, we do it with like pressure saddle mapping. Like, you know, you sit on a saddle and like everything goes green. It's like, the pressure looks good, and like you see the person sitting on the saddles in agony, like this is really not comfortable.
Oh, really?
And so, you know, you know, sometimes that happens, and you know, then you got to pick. You know, do you go with the human or do you go with the algorithm?
Well, it depends how in touch. It depends how in touch that human is, because obviously, you know, you have. I mean, the big one that I often meet with is athletes who dislike displaying weakness or fear of failure, and then their ability to accurately like feedback on the difficulty of a workout is really skewed, because they're never going to tell you it was really hard, because that implies that it was difficult and therefore they were weak. But then they'll also, I don't know, like, so you kind of, RPE is actually really difficult to use with athletes who aren't super in tune with themselves and like able to have that honest conversation. But in defense of people who use Whoop, which is awful, by the way. I now have it in my coaching agreement. When you sign up, you're not allowed to use Whoop, and you're not allowed to upload any wrist-based heart rate data, because it just wrecks Training Peaks. But yeah, like in their defense, they are just well-meaning, looking to be better and looking to be healthier. And as far as they know, this device, product, app is offering them the solution that they want, in the same way diets do, in the same way books do, in the same way makeup does, in the same way, like, so many things are advertised towards us to tell us that, like, if we just do this thing, maybe our life will be better. And like, everyone wants their life to be better. And also, I don't know, most people are like me when I joined the triathlon club in 2014, and they don't know jack about anything, but they're really enthusiastic, and so they'll take whatever's coming. And so, like, I guess I try not to be judgmental, but I try to kind of encourage people to think a bit more about things and maybe suggest better alternatives. But it's really hard because, I don't know, like, the marketing is so strong, and all of these things are endorsed by their favorite people. There's so many wonderful, smart, strong,
impressionable.
No, not impressionable. Impressive. Impressive athletes use these things, but because they're sponsored, not because they necessarily think they're great. Or maybe they do think they're great because they also don't care about the science, because they, whatever, because they're just a person. But these this market's just huge and very unethical, in my opinion.
I think it's so difficult. It's just the world we live in, the kind of world of marketing and so on. But like, I think I don't think I have a problem with apps and devices and tools that help people. And certainly from, when you don't know jack and you need a way in and you need something to help you, then this could be a great tool. And the training plan starts you off. Hell, I started exactly like that. It's like, well, I'm going to run a marathon. How am I going to do this? I have literally no idea. Oh, this is a magazine article and it's got a training plan in it. Well, let's give that a try and see what happens. And I don't have a problem with that, as long as the athlete can go through a journey and improve. And actually, at the end of the journey, the pinnacle is a human coach, like someone who has experience and talent and is able to kind of troubleshoot on a much deeper level, as you said, talking to people about more than just the plan and what their power is and FTP and heart rate and so on, but actually what are they feeling. You should it reminds me of talking to Gillian Cork, who we had on the podcast a while back, and her job is as a behavioral therapist, and helping part of her job is helping bike fitters create better relationships with their clients, and part of it is understanding humans and their psychology. And sometimes, like, trauma can be great enough that it buries feelings. Like, if you ask someone how they feel, especially, like, just really basic example, if you've sat on a saddle for a long period of time and it's been really hurting, bits that you don't want to hurt, but you've kind of got away with it and your body's kind of found a way around it, and the body's shut off the sensation to that area because it doesn't want to feel that pain, then you're not going to be able to access that kind of feeling, like literally physically and mentally, until you go through a process of recovering that kind of feeling, both physically and mentally. So if you can't feel, then an algorithm's not going to help you, and may make things worse. And so this is where your coach, your human, has to dig into it and work through it with you as a person. Just talk to another person.
So pain is a super interesting concept, because essentially in endurance sport, what you're doing is you're defying your brain's messaging. Your brain is saying, this is rather uncomfortable, I don't like this. And you're saying, I know, I don't care. We're going. Keep going. Go harder. Like, no, this is really sore. This is quite painful. I'm not enjoying this. No, keep going. Like, so the whole endeavor is really, in some ways it's training you to not pay attention to pain. So then when you have pain, you're like, is this pain? Like you may remember a long time ago when you were helping me with bike fitting, because I had back pain. And I remember when I'd go to the physio, it's a really good physio actually at UCL called Matt Hare. And I would say sometimes, like, I swear I'm not a hypochondriac, but but I definitely feel this thing. I'm not sure. But then sometimes I'd be fine and other times not. And it was such a strange journey. And I think the biggest thing I learned in my own journey with back pain was pain doesn't equate to tissue damage. Pain is the brain telling you something that may or not be related to actual tissue damage, but it may just be the brain telling you, we're worried because we have previous experience with bad stuff going on in this location. But there may be nothing more than the brain just being overactive.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, one of the hardest conversations we have with people is that distinguishing the good pain from bad pain. And one of the things we try and teach a lot of the time is, how are you in control of your discomfort? Are you in control of your pain? And if you push hard on the pedals, then your legs are going to burn. But as soon as you stop pushing on the pedals, then your muscles will stop aching and that pain goes away, and that's fine. You're in control of that. But if you're sitting on a saddle and every time you get off it, everything's numb and things are burning and chafing, then that is something you did not choose, something you're not in control of, and so that's not good pain. And similarly with the rest of your body, the more intense the pain, the more pervasive that pain, persistent, then that's as you said, your body's trying to tell you something. It's trying to have a conversation, let you know about something. So pain, they say pain is the greatest teacher. So you can, but then you got to choose to listen or not listen. And we're a funny bunch, human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely one thing over the years coaching. That's you're talking about like legs burning. That's been a really challenging one for me to get to know particular athletes and understand what, like, when they're writing feedback or they're telling me how a session went, understanding if this is like, more pain than normal, like, or understanding that this is just them telling me, oh no, it was just a hard session, or it's like trying to report on a different sensation. Like, literally, words mean things, but they don't necessarily mean the same things that you think that I think they do, even if we both speak English and we're from the same region of the country. Like, it's so hard. Like, you really underestimate how hard it is to find a truly common language with someone when you're talking about these concepts about how we feel in our body.
Because but what pain you feel is completely different to the pain I feel, and so on your level of kind of pain. And so this is why coaching's really, really tricky, and it's really hard to find like a really great coach. So if you find one, stick with them, usually, I say.
I mean, one of the biggest examples is, so last year I was out running with my friends, and I had what looked like an innocuous fall, but it was actually really bad, and I made a hole in my knee right through to the tendon. And I felt very sorry for myself, and I couldn't really run or do that much for a month. But I also am in Girona, where people have like really serious crashes in a race, and then they get up in the race and they keep going, and then they race the next day, and then they just suck it up and get over it. And then at the other extreme, I have a friend who's a bit of a hypochondriac, and if she like gets a hangnail, it's like the world's going to end. So it's all relative to your own personal frames of reference.
But that's why it's so important to be able to have the conversations rather than just working off the script in front of you. You just have to have conversations with other human beings and get other human beings to work with you. Like you were saying, like I can't bike fit myself. Like, I need someone else to bike fit me, because essentially they're trying to save me from myself. Like, they're going to tell me all the things that I can't see and provide a different perspective. And the same with coaching. I've got you to coach me, because I just can't coach myself, and going to drive myself into a hole. So I need the voice of reason to be like, hey, actually, is this what you really want? Is this actually what you're doing? So yeah, that's always been appreciated. Okay, we've been going for quite a while.
We've been chatting for ages.
So I think we're going to have to wrap this one up. We didn't even get onto kind of women's specific stuff, but
No,
maybe
we
can do
didn't.
another conversation for that. But yeah, I think some really amazing insights into kind of how you think about coaching, your philosophy around it, the values, and what you feel is important, and how people should train. And yeah, thanks for sharing all those thoughts and your story. And yeah, that's it's been really amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. And I think you're probably biased because we probably have a similar philosophy. I'm sure there's people out there who have a completely different philosophy, which resonates much more with other people as well. So I guess for me, just having this conversation is a nice reminder that, there's not often like hard and fast yes and no's, but a lot of it's just about the connection and the relatability of the people.
Yeah, it depends, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the title of my thesis.
It depends. But yeah, it's absolutely. There's no wrongs or rights, and yeah, it all comes back to humans in the end. So it's going to be being optimistic about AI, and it's not going to take over the world, because humans need humans at the end of the day.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm sure other people will disagree, but
sure.
We'll see. Yeah.
People who don't rely on humans for their business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, dear.
If people want to find out a little bit more about you, where can they find you?
Sure. So my business is called Drivetrain, and they can find me drivetrain.cc on the internet, or the same on Instagram.
All right, excellent. And have you got any rides coming up? Any rides? What's on the horizon?
What am I going to do? So I'm going to cycle from Girona to Rotterdam for the Women's Tour de France. So that is just after the Olympics. So hopefully I'll not pass too close to Paris if they're still having things going on there. And then there's also, I'm going to go back to my triathlon roots. There's a fun triathlon, kind of like an Xterra triathlon here in Girona called Scrail in October. So I'm going to do that. And then there's a 50K run from the sea back to Girona in November. So I'm going to try these out. So as I said, hopefully I'll be more fit by the end of this year than I am right now.
Xterra. I've always wanted to do Xterra. So,
you should come.
Send me the details.
I will.
See if I can figure it out. October's enough time to train.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great stuff. And finally, about the Women's Alliance, where can people find? The Cyclists Alliance.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So the Cyclists Alliance, we're cyclistalliance.org, or on Instagram, just search the Cyclists Alliance and you'll find us. We have a lovely purple logo, and perfect. we have an ex-pro rider called Leah Kirchman. She just retired. She used to ride for Sunweb, then DSM. She's our communications coordinator, and so she is doing an amazing job. She just started recently of pushing our message out and engaging with more people. So she's the person behind that. Amazing. All right, look forward to more stuff there. And thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. And thank you. We'll catch you maybe in Girona. If you made it to the end of this episode, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, do leave us a rating or review, as this really helps other riders find our podcast too, and motivates us to keep making more episodes. Thanks for your support, and catch you on the next one.
Suffering from numb hands, tingling toes, and any other persistent discomforts when you ride? These are all signs that your bike fit could be improved. If you're bike fit curious, get in touch with Wei or Matt by emailing info@foundation.fit or finding them on Instagram @FDN_bikefit. Finally, for all your bike servicing needs, custom dream bike or hand-built wheels, go to www.frequencycycleworks.com or find me on Instagram @frequencycycleworks. Until next time, Keep on spinning.